Hey everybody, it's Mr. Isaacs here, and we're going to go over another set of notes for 7th grade science. So today, I know that I say all my content is my favorite content, but adaptations and eventually we'll be getting to natural selection. That is like my favorite, if so to speak. So sit tight. Hopefully, make sure you can always fast forward the video, rewind it, pause, whatever you got to do to get the information. Don't be afraid to come back to the video to help you out with some of the questions or review before a quiz or test. Without further ado, let's get into it. So we are talking about adaptations. We just got done talking about food webs. We just got done talking about all these biomes, okay, and they're biotic or living things, and they're abiotic things. So what the temperature is, okay, how much resources they have, stuff like how much sunlight they get per year. Those would all be non-living things, whereas biotic would be living. Things that I want to talk about here about adaptations. Now we're going to take our living things, okay, and we're going to talk about why do they look the way they do? Why do we have certain species that live in the ocean, whereas we don't see those same species on land, or they aren't terrestrial? Okay, why do we see more types of organisms around the equator where it's really warm and a lot of water, whereas sometimes in like the tundra or Antarctica, we don't see as many species, okay? And so it all comes down to how all of these organisms adapt to their environment, okay? So when we look at adaptations, what we're looking at is this first word, adapt, okay? And that is going to be how the organism is going to, how it's set up to survive within its environment. We'll go and give a better definition in a little bit. But what I want to talk about and review right before we hop into adaptations is the process of how do humans become humans? Okay, how are dogs? And so what the information and coming from our cells unit, we know that that information is all held within the nucleus of the cell. Okay, and so that information is going to be our DNA. All right, every organism on the planet is going to have DNA. All right, and that is going to tell our cells what to build and how to construct what they are. Okay, the DNA is going to come out and make proteins, which are going to then make who we are. So for humans, give me some curly hair, or for dogs, they look different, right? They got a fur across their entire body, and they have their skull's different. All right, all these different organisms need different proteins to make them up, and what tells them to make those proteins is going to be the DNA that they have. Okay, now another thing to review: we pass this DNA down to our offspring. Okay, to our offspring. And one important part to keep in mind is that we get in sexual reproduction, we get half from mom and half from dad. Okay, so we get half from each. So that means the offspring, or me and you, we don't look exactly like our mom or exactly like our dad, dad or mom. We look something in between. And so we get some of the DNA that is produced from each. And so that makes us different. And as we keep doing this over time and time again, all right, we pass down our DNA. Different things will be favored. And by those things, I mean adaptation. So depending on what environment we're in, different things will lend itself to helping you survive. And so that's where adaptations come in. We're going to talk about the two different types, behavioral and structural. And we're just going to hop into it. So here we go. What is an adaptation? An adaptation is a physical or behavioral characteristic that has developed to allow an organism to better survive. I cannot highlight this part enough. To better survive in its environment. It can take many generations to develop an adaptation. So an adaptation, what exactly are we talking about? All right. Well, we're talking about birds having wings. Okay, we're talking about humans having a large brain. Okay, we're talking about uh, a wolf having those canine teeth. Okay, we're talking about all these different things, or we're talking about organisms that decide to do things, and that's where we're talking about instead of physical attributes. Those are all physical things that I said: wings, how big your brain is. But behavioral characteristics, what we're talking about is how they act. So that would be choosing to really collaborate. Humans do a really good job of collaborating with one another. Wolves hunt in packs, okay? Or certain birds do different dances in order to find mates, okay? That would be a behavioral characteristic, all right? Only being awake and moving around at night, okay? Being nocturnal would be a behavioral characteristic. So anything that you can see would be physical, whereas anything that the animal does is going to be a behavioral characteristic. All right. And then I cannot stress enough, we're going to come back to it in later videos, but as long as whatever physical or behavioral characteristic, as long as that helps the organism better survive, okay, that means help us live longer lives, okay, that depending on the specific environment, all right, then it can become an adaptation. All right, we don't have adaptations that are going to not allow us to survive very well. Okay, not very many organisms. If let's say a fish is born without gills, okay, a fish born without gills is not going to survive in the water very well. So what that means is it's not going to be able to pass down that DNA that said that it wouldn't have any gills. Okay, so keep that in mind. You need to be able to better survive so that you can pass down your traits. And we'll go more in detail and explain exactly what that mechanism is called later. Okay, so look at the environment, look at the organism, what allows the organism to live in the environment. Okay, that's going to be your adaptation. All right. All right, adaptations can be structural or behavioral. So, like we said, structural adaptations can be physical things that we see. That's going to be like the bill of a bird. So that means, is it going to be a bird that's trying to poke holes in trees like a woodpecker? Their bill is going to be different than that of a pelican, okay, that has a really long bill that stretches like a net. All right, they do different things because they live in different areas and they eat different things as well. Okay, this may remind you of a niche. Okay, a niche is kind of what an organism eats, how it fits inside inside an environment. Okay, now also we're talking about like a fur on a bear. What does fur do? Why would a bear need fur? Well, usually bears live in colder environments and need to stay warm, and so bears need that fur to keep them warm. And so that would be a physical structural adaptation. Okay, they're physical features. Whereas we also have behavioral, and we already talked about it briefly, but behavioral adaptations, they're the things that organisms do. Okay, what does it actually do when it's actually living out in the world? All right, so birds, they're calling for other mates or communicating with other organisms, or as simple as migrating. Okay, it gets cold, now this organism is going to migrate south, okay, where it's a lot warmer. All right, or you guys will do an activity called the frozen frog activity, or maybe it's a behavioral adaptation that signals to the frog to hibernate or to become frozen, okay, during the wintertime. These are all pretty interesting adaptations that some organisms have gotten. And the reason behind all of these, okay, all these adaptations is so that they can survive better. Okay, it's so they can survive and live longer lives. Okay, here we go. Structural adaptations. All right, so we're just going with more and more examples, but things that we're looking at. Okay, these are the physical things that we can see, every single one. Xylem, okay, that's inside our plants. It transports the water up and down the plants. Okay, we have stingers, the ability to change colors in like chameleons or different fish can do this. Claws to snatch prey with. Gills allowing you to breathe underwater and survive underwater. Okay, hollow bones in birds allow them to be lighter so that they can fly. All these things, there's a reason behind the adaptations that they have. It allows them to do something that is going to allow them to survive more. Okay, there aren't adaptations that are negative. Okay, ones that basically make them die, because they would disappear. They wouldn't be able to pass down their DNA. All right, so duck with webbed feet, that helps them swim. Okay, their feathers also have a bunch of oil on them, which allows them to float on top of the water. Fish, their gills allow them to breathe water. Giraffe, they can, longer the neck, the more food that they can find on certain trees. Okay, they didn't. We'll just keep on going. Sorry. Beavers, large pointed teeth helps them cut down trees. Okay, whales, they have blubber to help them survive in colder environments. This allows them to go get different types of food in colder water. Okay, cactus, they have shallow roots because of the soil that they're in. Okay, in the deserts. Okay, snakes, flexible jaw. If they didn't have a flexible jaw, they couldn't swallow their food whole. Okay, because they don't have any teeth that allow them to chew their food. So they have to swallow it whole. All right, that's an adaptation that they've developed because that works for them. All right, let's keep on going. Structural adaptations. Again, here's a couple photos. You can see the different teeth and the fur and all the good stuff that's going on here. We got these canine scissors that this cat has that allows them to grip their food and to sink its teeth into it so it can't get away. Okay, beavers have different teeth. They want to be able to pick up little pieces of wood and bring it to make dams, also to cut down certain trees. All right, all of these adaptations. Okay, white fur allows the polar bear to blend in with the white snow. Okay, the monarch butterfly is actually poisonous, and so it signals to the environment that it's very bright colors to warn against how poisonous it is. All right, or this sugar glider, it's found a way to walk around and transport itself through the air. Okay. Gliding between trees. This allows it to get away from predators and to access food that it wouldn't be able to access otherwise. Okay, all of the adaptations allow these organisms to survive better. Okay, they allow the organisms to survive better. So last part, behavioral is a little bit harder just because you can't physically point at it. You can't physically see it. But behavioral adaptations would be to migrate, fly south in the wintertime. Okay, it gets cold. There's not as much resources around. Time to take the population and fly south where there's more resources. Okay, or bears, hibernation in the winter. Not, again, another one relating to a change in climate, a change in the weather, the abiotic factors. Okay, the non-living factors. All right, there are less resources. Again, okay, why do bears hibernate in the winter? Because there's not enough food, so they would rather just sleep, conserve their energy, and wake up at the end. Possums, they play dead to avoid predators. Okay, so they have something it's not a physical like stench. It's not like some teeth that they help protect themselves with. They just pretend to be dead. All right, that's a behavioral adaptation that they've developed. Desert animals not going out in the daytime when it's super, super hot. Okay, nocturnal or inactive during the daytime. That's a pretty good one. And then below ground dwellings to avoid the harsh sun rays. Remember, the sun's rays can be damaging to your body. I hope you guys are all doing great. This is just a kind of a quicker video for you guys. If you have any questions, make sure that you message your teacher, and I'll see you all later. Peace.